o'clock, I was on a 4-hour webinar from the National Congress of Black Churches, and they were talking about COVID and different problems that are coming, and they're predicting a big upsurge come fall. So just telling y'all. But the biggest thing was that a check for $500 will be coming to Temple of Love for me sitting through those 4 hours. Very informative, but also they asked that we need their help. And I'm starting to believe that as small as we are, that what will get the things done is not necessarily sending folks to hell for not giving, but coming up with entrepreneurial things and partnerships to bring money in the front door. $500 ain't bad, especially when it was really informative. It talked about some of the effects of COVID mentally. Everybody's always thinking that what the 2 years did to us. Some of the crazy things these kids are doing is because they were locked up for 2 years. So it was very informative. A check is coming in 7 weeks, so we'll be looking for it. Made out to Temple of Love. They ain't making none of them out to no pastor. You gotta get a church's name. All the money's going to the churches. So I'm really grateful about that. I got a text from the book of Amos. It's a minor prophet. The book of Amos, Amos 9, verses 13 through 15. Amos 9, verses 13 through 15. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes him that soweth seed, and the mountains shall drop sweet wine, and all the hills shall melt. And I will bring again the captivity of my people of Israel, and they shall build the waste cities and inhabit them, and they shall plant vineyards and drink the wine thereof. They shall also make gardens and eat the fruit of them. And I will plant them upon their land, and they shall be no more pulled out of their land, which I've given them, saith the Lord thy God. The Message Bible gives it better. It says this: yes, indeed, it won't be long now, God's decree. Things are going to happen so fast, your head will swim. One thing fast on the heels of the other. You won't be able to keep up. Everything will be happening at once, and everywhere you look, blessings. Blessing like wine pouring off of the mountains and hills. I'll make everything right again for my people Israel. They'll rebuild their ruined cities. They'll plant vineyards and drink good wine. They'll work their gardens and eat fresh vegetables, and I'll plant them on their own land. They'll never again be uprooted from the land I've given them. God, your God, says so. Hanging my hat on that one verse from verse 13. Amos 9, verse 13. Behold, the days cometh, saith the Lord, and the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes him that soweth seed. And the mountains shall drop sweet wine, and all the hills shall melt. For a few minutes on this Sunday, I'd like to share from this subject, our next season of abundance. Say that with me, our next season of abundance. Now, I got to do a little work before I get there, but our next season of abundance. The book of Amos has 9 chapters, 146 verses, 4,217 words, 28 commands, 31 questions, 2 promises, 117 predictions, 121 verses of prophecy, 8 verses of unfulfilled prophecy, 113 verses of fulfilled prophecy, and 35 distinct messages from God, and our text is one of them. Behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that the plowman shall overtake the reaper. I believe that we have a season coming that will baffle our minds and boggle our imaginations. The writer says that the plowman shall overtake the reaper. The writer is basically saying that the crops and the harvest in the fields shall be so great that the time of reaping or gathering will last so long in that season that it'll overtake those who are coming to plant for the next season. So that the seasons of plowing, sowing, and gathering the grapes, treading the winepress, shall press on the heels of each other. So vast will be the abundance, and so long the time necessary to gather and cure the grain and fruits. Each season would manifest itself, but have parts of these operations going on at the same time. The prophet prophesied a time of great fertility in the land, abundance in the crops, and the regularity of the seasons seem to be things which the prophet especially predicts. The man of God saw happy times coming. I'm speaking the same to each of you on this morning. Better days are coming. This is a bold message to give in the midst of a downturn. We need to realize that the downturn is amongst men and doesn't apply to God. If the famines of the Bible didn't faze our God, then how is the downturn of 2022 any different? Things are about to happen so fast that our heads will swim. Blessings will come at us so fast that we won't be able to keep up with them. Everywhere that we will look, we will see blessings. How many of you all would love to see this season arriving soon? How many of you would like to have a harvest where you are so busy reaping that the next season arrives before you pick up the goods from last season? Saints, I feel the power of restoration, vindication, justice, and fruitfulness operating today like never before. The people of God in this text are definitely on the comeback trail. Saints, can't nobody bring you back like God can. Our God has the patent on comebacks. No one can settle a score for you like God can. It's indeed risky to prophesy better days when we're living in these perilous times. I believe that God's about to blow our minds. Amos was a shepherd and a layman. Amos didn't consider himself a professional prophet. Amos spoke against the superficial religious institutions of his day. Amos prophesied to the moment instead of prophesying for money like many of the prophets of our day. Amos provoked a great deal of opposition. If God truly sends a prophet of his own, will the world love them? Amos consistently spoke on how neither Jew nor Greek is exempted from divine judgment and that God despises human pride. Amos stepped on toes, much like someone else that's speaking today. I want you to know that Amos wasn't a prosperity preacher that you see on Christian television. Amos got into folks' business and came against the crowd that felt that they had paradise made. And he came against those who had such a great faith in their own military. I hope we don't have no military when they got those top secret files. Now they ain't got no paperwork in them. Who knows who has those? Sounds more like our day, doesn't it? Amos consistently preached a message that you may currently be getting by, but you're not getting away from God's judgment. Right. Too few preachers in our day preach like this. As a matter of fact, let me deputize all of you. Look at someone and tell them, you may be getting by, but you're not getting away. Saints, if we preach that there aren't any consequences for ignoring God, then aren't we pushing away the harvest of souls that we are commanded by scriptures to reach? Saints, we can't clean that up. Despising and ignoring the laws of God comes with a price. Maybe that's why we see so much bedlam in our streets, because we rarely preach about the consequences of sin anymore. Everyone doesn't have heaven made. And we do God a disservice when we preach that all people do have heaven made. Saints, the soul that sinneth, it says in the scriptures, shall die. We can't treat a holy God as if he's bipolar. God's hands aren't tied behind his back. He does love sinners, but he still hates sin. God still judges sin. I don't ever desire to be in the path of an angry God. You shouldn't want that either. Never forget that I will always be a holiness preacher. I'm not the one that's going to ever just tickle your fancy and relax your toes. I will always give you what thus said the Lord, even when the messages punch myself squarely in the face. Amos 3 verse 7 states, surely the Lord will do nothing, but he revealeth his secret unto his servants, the prophets. Saints, it's my desire to know God and to know the mind of God. Amos 5 verse 4 say, for thus saith the Lord unto the house of the Israel, God talking, seek ye me, and ye shall live. I hear you on the streets, some folks on the street say, give me. But that ain't what they're saying right here. It says, seek ye me, and ye shall live. Saints, we better find ourselves seeking God because our very lives will depend on it. When God sends fire, no one will be able to put that fire out. We had better hate the evil and love the good. In the midst of this message of deliverance, I just saw so many parallels between Amos's day and ours. Amos 6 verse 1 from the Amplified Bible states, woe! Judgment is coming to those who are at ease and carefree in Zion, and to those who are on the mountain of Samaria who feel secure, the distinguished men of the foremost of nations to whom the house of Israel comes. My brothers and sisters in Christ, we are at ease, comfortable, and way too carefree as it relates to the missions that God has given us. There's no place safe enough to hide us from an angry God. Your wealth, your influence, your connections, and your skill set won't be enough to keep you away from the day of God's judgment. At any moment, we could be facing the judgment of God. So let's get our houses in order accordingly. Amos's prophesying got him threatened and caused him to be a target of intimidation by the powers that be, but that didn't stop Amos. God called this herdsman to prophesy to the powerful, and Amos did just that. Why do our tongues go quiet when the influential are near? Amos brought words of warning and impending doom from the Lord to God's people in Israel. In the midst of all the judgment that Amos foretold of, God still had a plan of restoration for the people of God. We see destruction on a daily basis, but God still has a plan for our restoration. In our text, after all of this judgment, God promises to bring abundant crops, fruitfulness, and well-being to the people of God. My brothers and my sisters in Christ, God's declaring the same to each one of us. We need to get right or get left. But if we do keep seeking God, then better days will be ours. God's going to restore the fortunes that have been lost by us. God's going to turn some of our reversals around. God's going to take the smell of bondage off of us. Saints, God is aiming his delivering power in your direction. Saints, I see you in your next season of abundance. I so feel the words of St. John 10 verse 10 right at this moment. The thief cometh not but for to steal and to kill and to destroy. I am come that they might have life and that they might have it more abundantly. Saints, God sent me here today as your tour guide on your trip to abundance. I literally can see our next season of abundance. I see each of you in the future looking so much better than you look right now. Saints, do you desire the restoration of God? Do you desire an overflowing state of abundance? I certainly do. After all the doom and gloom each one of us has been through over the last few years, funeral after funeral, trial after trial, this and that, hearing bad news every 2 minutes. Saints, if we can just live right, then we can have it all. God's about to transform our coming season so powerfully. Before you can pick up the blessing that God's going to send in one season, then God's going to send people who will be planting more blessings on our behalf. Saints, with all that we've been through over the last few years, aren't you ready for a season of abundance? I'm certainly ready for my next season of abundance. We've lived through judgment, maybe not final judgment, but better times are soon to be ours. God's about to accelerate our growth in a way that he's never has before. And God's about to reinvigorate our efforts as never before. God's given us hope for the days and times ahead. Saints, we have abundance coming in God and from God. We can't forget God in our prosperous road ahead. Our season of blessing will be so great that we won't know the sowers from the reapers. Look across the room and tell someone that our season will be just that great. Now say this with me: bigger, stronger, bolder, better, and greater are headed to an address of yours very soon. Don't you give up, saints. Don't worry in well-doing, because your due season is almost here. We also see in this text, when God releases blessings and restoration, fruit comes from unexpected places. Normally, grapevines don't grow well on mountains or high hills. But in the days of Israel's restoration, even the mountains shall drip with sweet wine, and all the hills shall flow in with. We should pray for such seasons of unexpected fruit. God has some unexpected fruit that's coming our way. We are about to be blessed by people that we don't know, in places that we haven't been, and in ways that we never thought of. The works of our hands are about to be blessed. Our ideas will be blessed. God's about to make our names great. God has a special season of blessing that God has reserved for those of us who've been faithful. I see a season of strength ahead of us. I see a season of power and authority that's coming our way. The late Charles Haddon Spurgeon once said this: the most extraordinary ministers of any time have been the most extraordinary sinners before conversion. Saints, I know that I have some more, but I also have some considerable experience on the other side of the tracks. That's why I'm so passionate about the things of God. If God could save a rank sinner like me, then I think that we should take God's amazing grace and never take it lightly. I know that this Christian walk becomes an uphill journey fraught with struggles overnight, but God has payback coming our way. Tell somebody God's got payback coming. Your best times won't be the seasons where you prospered because you lined up with the word, but God has a blessing for those whom are his that will soon shut every naysayer and every unbeliever's mouths. You've been mocked and made fun of, but God's about to shut somebody's mouth as it relates to you. Saints, if we are willing, we are about to walk in the season of our dreams. God's sending rapid growth our way. Things will soon happen just that quickly. God's about to send restoration to all of us who've been robbed by the enemy's devices. God's about to give you your hope and your joy back. God's about to place you in right standing once again. God's about to send prominence back to us. God's bringing us out of the trash heap, out of the horrible pit, and out of the miry clay. God's going to put his special polish on us once again. My brothers and my sisters in Christ, God's about to cause us to shine once again. God's about to put a gloss on us, and that gloss is called favor. You might have forgotten your lip gloss, but you don't dare leave home without the favor that God's about to place on us. Prosperity and revival to be ours once again. I feel Paul, who said in Romans 8 verse 18, for I reckon that the sufferings of this present time are not worthy to be compared to the glory which shall be revealed in us. Saints, we have some great things headed our way. Don't you lose faith. Don't you lose heart over the things that are presently happening to you. Our season of abundance is due up next. I know we're all used to standing in lines. You go down there to get your tags if you can get in the building. They got that thing up at the top. And they said, now serving. Well, if that number is 37 and you're holding 38, what does that mean? That means that you're next. God told me to tell you that you're next in line for a miracle. You're next in line for a come up. You're next in line for increase. You're next in line to shut the enemy's mouth. God's about to do it. Stop staring at your current circumstances. Let me call Paul back one last time. 2 Corinthians 4 verses 16 through 18. For which cause we faint not, but though our outward man perish, yet the inward man is renewed day by day. For our light affliction, which is but for a moment, worketh for us a far more exceeding and eternal weight of glory. But we look not at the things which are seen, but at the things which are not seen. For the things which are seen are temporal, but the things which are not seen are eternal. That same Paul, give me one more time to quote Paul in Ephesians 3:20. He said, now unto him that's able to do exceedingly abundantly above all that we ask or think, according to the power that's working in us. God's about to do it big. God's about to do it fast. Soren Kierkegaard said that life's not a problem to be solved, but a reality to be experienced. God, please allow us to experience this coming season of obedience. God has some surreal moments ahead of us. Touch somebody and tell them that God's got some pinch yourself moments coming. You gonna have your eyes open, but you gonna say that this can't be real. We're gonna walk straight into our dreams with our eyes wide open. I'm so looking forward to our next season of abundance. He said this. The writer said this. He said, he said this, behold, the days come, saith the Lord, that the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the tread of grapes over him that soweth seed, and the mountains shall drip sweet wine, and all the hills shall melt. Saints of God, I'm speaking this word that we got a coming season of abundance that's beyond our wildest dreams. While there's still planting, you're going to still be picking up. You're going to be picking up checks and picking up bonuses and picking up advancements and picking up promotions. Saints of God, it's coming that fast. Right in the middle of this downturn, God's sending you a season of abundance. Abundance means you got to press down, shaking together, and running over coming your way. God gets ready to bless us, some 30-fold and some 100-fold. My faith ain't in my finances. My faith ain't in my bank book. My faith is in the power of God. God's about to bless like he's never had. You got a season of abundance coming. You won't have room enough to see what God's about to give. No bank account that has FDIC protection, but after a certain amount, they don't cover it. I'm going to pray documentaries on YouTube, and he said that he was buying a house in California, and he's sitting there with the bank teller. He's showing him his finances and everything, and she instantly said, "What you gonna do with the house in Detroit?" He said, "Baby girl, you don't know that some folk have more than one house?" He said, "Some folk got a house for the fall, some folk got a house for the summer, and some folk got a house just to have one." So he said, "If my numbers add up, why are you worried about that?" The enemy so affected our mindset from where we came from, that God's about to send us a season of abundance that all those folks at the class reunion won't be able to explain. They're going to compare your grades to their grades. They're going to compare your job to their job. Folks, there's some 9 to 5 millionaires right out there. I was hearing the story of a cop, and he used his bonuses, and he kept putting the bonuses away. And before he ever left the force, he had like 10 daycare centers. The daycare centers were aimed at police officers with crazy hours. They believe in each other, so what better business for him to lunch? And it got to the point where he was still on the force. He's rolling in a $2 million home and still going out catching your calls every day. Saints of God, I'm telling you, we celebrating getting a 30-cent raise. We celebrating somebody wanting to give us another 5 cents an hour, and God's ready to bless us with so much abundance. We talk about the location. It's time for us to start buying blocks. Sometimes we need the money, and a whole block belongs to the church. Saints of God. G.E. Patterson built that building over there. There was never a mortgage on that building. G.E. had an irregular heartbeat, so it messed him up on key man insurance, because they ain't loaning the church nothing nowadays. They make sure that the pastor's health is fine. But G.E. had an irregular heartbeat long ago. But G.E. put about $1 million into a low bank account. And it's funny how all of a sudden they said, well, maybe we don't get a loan on you, put a mortgage on your church. Because even if you got a $50,000 a month payment, that's 20 months of payments you giving them in advance. God's about to bless all of us like that. 2 years ago, it was hard to qualify. But guess what? The same bank that told you no is about to tell you yes. And then the banks are going to be fighting to give you some money. And where they used to want you to be there, borrower, God's about to make you the lender. They treated him to a very tough way during his life. But when Tri-State Bank ran out of money, they called MJ. MJ might not know how to break down your declaration of your verbs, but MJ was keeping that bank going. Saints of God, you're about to be a lender. It's time out. Get your big old business together. Could you give me? No. You will have other folks saying, could you give me? Could you loan me? Let me hold something. God's about to bless you so bad and bless you so greatly. And folks with big money gonna be saying, let me hold something. Saints of God. I had a friend back in the day, and she, way back in the day, I knew a young lady that she's getting her hair done, and she's looking at Jet magazine while she's under the dryer, and all of a sudden she starts screaming right in the middle of the beauty shop. Well, Jet magazine was showing her aunt that won $12 million up in Illinois about 5 months earlier, and she didn't tell none of them nothing, because she was the maid that all the brothers and sisters Tupac in that movie. I'm ready to go to my seat. When Tupac in that movie, when he was talking to it, he just came to the family reunion that he didn't belong at. Poetic justice, cousin. It'll come to me. When he just shows up at a family reunion, and you're going to be able to do that at yours. Where they used to just say, oh, there go Melanie. But when Melanie come to bring everybody up, guess what? They're going to be fighting to get near you. God's about to send that kind of abundance our way. We've been worried about our finances, robbing Peter to pay Paul and hide from John, but God's about to send us so much abundance that we won't have room for it. Let's celebrate that season, Dr. Bo Wright. Let's give us some music for a second. It's our season of